So how's it? It's Scott Picken here. I'm coming live from Necker Island. It is going to be a little bit windy. I'm right out here on this beautiful point, and it's the furthest point of Necker Island. I'm just going to scan around for you. But you know, if you want me to do this outside and you get a feel for what's happening on this beautiful island. So that's the main beach down below with the beach, all the beach sports and everything else. And then up on the hill, that's the main house. And then Richard's house is round to the left there. You can actually see the temple, which is where Nelson Mandela and Desmond Tutu, Jomo Carter, and all these incredible people actually get involved in terms of coming down as part of the elders. And yeah, I mean, you can see the beach and everything there. So I'm gonna do my lessons from day one, and I want to be very clear here. I'm just going to give you a very high level overview. I am going to do a webinar where I'll go into this in a lot more detail. Obviously, it's an entire day and a half really, because I got here on the night of Sunday night. And I want to just share with you some of the really key highlights that I learned in the last 36 hours. So the first one was from Richard Branson himself. I sat next to him last night. We had dinner, and we actually asked him the question. One of the ladies sitting next to me asked him the question and said, you know, how do you get so much done? There's such a demand on your time. You know, you've got over 400 different companies. You know, how do you actually do it? You know, and all the charities that you're doing. And I mean, what was fascinating is just yesterday, he actually sold Virgin America, the American airline. He sold it for $1 billion. He made $1 billion. No, he personally made $1 billion. His net asset value went from $4 billion to $5 billion. And you think the man would be out partying and drinking champagne. He wasn't. He was sitting with us, having dinner, and actually telling everyone how he was quite upset. It was a hostile takeover, and he's quite upset. I mean, he just made $1 billion, but he was quite upset because it was a really good company. He says the best airline in America, and but more importantly, he was worried about his staff and what was going to happen. So it was fascinating. But he answered the question. He said it's all about prioritization. He doesn't carry a cell phone. He doesn't accept inbound calls. He doesn't actually phone people. He deals with it by email, and he literally just deals with what the most important thing is. So whether it's the charity, whether, as on yesterday, it was with Virgin America, whether it's launching something new, it's all about prioritization. And to be honest, this theme is coming through so many times when you look at the book like The One Thing, etc., etc. It's all about prioritization. So I'll go into a lot more detail and everything else that I learned from him specifically on the webinar. The number two thing was from a guy called John Ratcliffe. He built a company called Apple Tree. He sold it for $800 million. So again, a very interesting guy. And he did a whole talk or discussion around how to build high growth companies. And he said the most important thing is that the only way to do it is if you've got a fundamental operating system within the company. He said primarily the best one is culture. And the best way to build culture is through communication. And he talks about the Rockefeller habits, which you can read about in a book called Scaling Up. And there's a huge amount of detail that goes into it. And again, when I do the webinar, I'll explain it a lot more. But it was absolutely fascinating that communication and culture were the core to a fundamental operating system, which really took him. And what I laughed about is that where the bottlenecks were and what stages of the business and what you needed when you need it, and you know how, as an example, sheer force can get an entrepreneur to 30 or 40 people, but can't take them any further. Then a guy called Matt Patton actually also did a presentation on the 6 most important things that he's learned. He comes to Necker for about, he's been 4 times this year already. He's a good friend of Richard. Oh, by the way, John Ratcliffe also owns a house on Mosquito, which is the island that's in that direction with Richard Branson. Matt Patton was sharing the 6 things, and what I found fascinating is the number 1 thing was quality listening. So, he says that the more you listen, the more you learn. And the number 2 thing was note taking, and specifically drawing. So, he's even been on drawing classes so that his notes can get better and better. The other one was meditation. Surrounding yourself with really, really quality people, having meaningful relationships. And funny enough, number 6 was kite surfing, which is obviously something very close to my heart and Richard Branson's heart and clearly his heart. So they were the 6 most important things that he said that he would like to share with people in terms of what it is that they're actually doing. I think the 4th one for me was the whole thing around abdication versus delegation. How do you build a great company? And Richard Branson taught me last year that there's 3 things you have to do. Get great people, set them up for success, and then delegate. But what's very important is the whole difference between abdication and delegation. And most people, when they delegate, they actually just abdicate, which is say to someone, go and do it, good luck, cheers. And it's really about creating the feedback loop. So again, setting them up for success, telling them what your thoughts are of what success looks like and how you would like to get feedback on that. And there's a whole process. as to how you do delegation versus abdication. And I know certainly from my experience, I've been guilty of abdication, and really there's a way to learn about delegation and how to actually do it in terms of what's looking at. Then another one that's just a really short one that came through that was really, really good was the Daily Huddle. Like they literally, he had 13 key executives in his company. This is now back to John. And every single day at 9:04, they had a daily huddle for no more than 15 minutes. And it's all about prioritization. What's the one thing that you're going to get done today? And then just really the next day, did you get it done, yes or no? And what's the one thing? And so just it's that whole communication and that culture that he talks about. The sixth thing was pattern recognition. You know, they were talking about, or Richard Branson was talking about how, you know, one of his great successes in business is pattern recognition. And really the whole purpose of the Daily Huddle is for pattern recognition, because you can see what's happening. You can see if people are setting their goals too high or too low. Everything in life is about pattern recognition, and that's the difference between a master at chess and a grandmaster at chess, is that it's pattern recognition, and generally they're about 4 moves ahead. So, you know, what are you doing with regards to pattern recognition and really trying to understand kind of what is happening in your life? And the last one is something that Roger Hamilton actually talks about, which is a future vision. And some other people talk about it, about painting your future, but really it's where you go out 12 months into your future and you write a long, extensive letter to yourself in the first tense about what you're grateful for, how it happened in your life. And it's all about goals. And you know, it's amazing when you hang around such successful people. It's all about goals, and it's all about writing your goals down. And everyone in the whole room was sharing how powerful that has been. And you know, I've been doing a future vision now for 4 or 5 years. Roger Hamilton taught me how to do that, and it really is super, super powerful. And I often say to people, be very careful of what you ask for, because you might just get it. And you know, one of my goals that I set myself many years ago was to meet Richard Branson. I did that in 2010. And then in 2012, I saw Roger was on Necker Island. I was like, what? Can you even do that? Is that even possible? So I set myself a goal as a bucket list to come to Necker Island. And you know, here I stand on the point of Necker Island for the second time now. So, you know, it's all about a future vision. Create the future you want, write it down, get specific, and it'll then happen. So that's me coming live. As I said, I will do a webinar where I go into all my detailed notes and all my detailed sharings. But I need to go now. I've got to go and have breakfast. We're starting 9 a.m. this morning with Richard Branson for another 3-hour business discussion. I literally can't wait. Cheers. Speak to you tomorrow.